Right, we've got a big heavy thing here to look at today. It's Sony digital powered mixer SRP-X700P. Let's take a look at the front and see what it's all about. Well, on the side here, it's got, this is the side, and it's got quite a big fan on there. We'll get it over so we can look at the front. A Sony digital powered mixer. So it's got on the front here a bunch of sliders for levels of all the different inputs. It's an audio mixer, but it also does video, and it can also be controlled by a computer or remotely, USB connection there, or RS-232, and so that can take over the control of these sliders, or you can do it manually here. And so it has, I think, dedicated inputs 1 to 6, 7, and then 8, which can select from those things presumably. And it's got output level indicators. It has 2 outputs, A and B, which you can adjust the levels of there. It's also got 2 microphone tuners, and there's scenes that you can save and recall. Oh yeah, so wireless 1 and 2, or mic 1 or 2, and then there's line inputs that these ones can be. Now we'll have a look at the back. Well, that's annoying. I must have double clicked the record button because I ended up with no file, well, a 1 kilobyte file instead of all the stuff I just talked about was on the back. Anyway, this is the view of the back. AC input, there's a circuit breaker, push to reset, I'm not sure what that goes to. So for inputs, it's got here, and if we go through, so inputs, you get microphone inputs there up to 1 to 4, which they have the phantom power, which can be turned on and off, balanced XLR inputs. Then there's mic 5, line 1, so these 2 and 6, these 2 inputs can be chosen between microphone level or line level. And then there's line input 4, which is the one that had all those extra buttons by it. So this is what they were for choosing, whether you want A, B, C, which is composite OS video and stereo audio, D and E, which give you component or RGB on this thing that looks like a VGA connector, and then is that 5.1 audio, which is interesting, or F, which is again component or RGB and a stereo audio. And then for outputs, you get balanced audio 1 and 2, then 3 to 8 unbalanced, and then record output 1 and 2. And then there's video output and S-video composite, and then either component or RGB, some separate syncs. And you get speaker outputs, 4 to 16 ohm impedance, which is quite good and capable. But also you can do 70 volts with 32 to 10k ohm. Really, is that 32 ohm to 10k ohm impedance for long distance and driving a whole bunch of speakers in parallel that have got matching transformers in them to reduce the voltage down. So that must be why this thing is so heavy, because it's got the step-up transformer for that. And I wonder if that's what that little circuit breaker is for when you're running it in 70 volts. I don't know, do you think would that 70 volt thing be active all the time, or would you have to choose that somehow? So remote control here, you get parallel, I guess it's a parallel port, RS-232 and another USB. I'm not sure how that ties into the one on the front. Maybe they can both be used. There's projector control with Control S or RS-232, and there's more Control S's for those. And then there's the 2 aerial connectors for the wireless microphone receivers. Very comprehensive. This thing must be used for presentations, I guess, in your fancy boardroom with lots of screens and inputs to choose from. Or maybe your lecture theatres where you can have various video sources from different computers or DVD players and things, or microphones. Let's take a look inside. Now, because I thought I was already recording, I did already loosened off this top cover, although it's not budging at all. I think there's actually more screws. I thought, looking at the side of this when I was undoing them, that these 4 screws here were just for adding rack mounting, but maybe you do have to undo those as well to get the cover off. It sure feels like it because it's still very rigidly attached. This thing must be like nearly 10 kilograms. It's also quite bashed in on this front corner down here, so a testament to its heft. Yes, that means there's a total of 6 screws on each side holding this thing shut. I guess, yeah, for rack mounting, because it's so heavy, you would need a bunch of screws, especially if you're just going to hang it from the front. Alright, I think it's ready to take the cover off now. Let's see. Oh, look at that. The transformer there. Oh, okay. So it must have had quite a big knock. Yeah, because I could hear something rattling around inside it before. So this transformer's like ripped itself out of its housing and smashed that fan apart. Interesting. Yeah, it must be the other spot of that fan, which is what was rattling around inside it. Look at what we've got here. A big transformer. The speaker outputs up here go to these wires. So this thing here must be the amplifier board. Looks like it, isn't it? With power coming in there and speaker output, and then some kind of special driver thing with a heatsink, some ribbon cable, and some audio signals. That's interesting. Then there's various layers of boards down here which we need to get out and investigate. We also have here on the front these wireless microphone thingies, is that these can pop out. Poking an appropriate device into those holes there, they slide out. So there's two of these wireless microphone receivers. I don't have any transmitters that would work with these. Well, I don't have any transmitters at all for wireless microphones. So it's a URX M1 and a URX M2 UHF synthesized tuner unit with just a kind of single inline pin here type thing to connect it. Let's have a look what's in these. Some RF goodness. So that must mean the aerial is also coming in through those. That's quite dodgy for RF, isn't it? So that's these wires here, there, and this little shield. Okay, I'll just take a closer look at that. So I'm going to see what's under the bottom of this thing. Whoa, there's heaps of stuff on the bottom, look at that. All sorts of good stuff in there. Including a ribbon cable. I must go to that little screen thing on the front. So there's a set and an up and down button. Yeah, lots of stuff doing this and that. I guess these modules can go into various types of like wireless mic receiver things. Okay, so that ribbon cable just goes onto that little front panel thing, which is quite shielded off from the rest of the RF stuff. I wonder if there's some kind of control IC under there, under the screen maybe? Not sure about that. Oh no, there's, maybe that's the main CPU thing under there and it's just all the segment lines going over that cable, which looks like it has quite a lot of pins. Don't think it says how many pins that's got. Anyway, that's the wireless microphone doofies. Let's get stuck into this. An amplifier. I'll get that off first because that seems to be on top. That nice click of the really well done up screws. Some grounding wires. I think this whole thing's made in Japan. Is that what it said on the sticker? Yes, so you know it's going to be good. Nice ferrite there. Another one there. And we've got that, which looks like the audio inputs. And that, which might be some sort of control thing. I wonder how they do the... I thought there would be a step-up transformer to make the 70 volt output driving thing, but maybe they have some other cunning way of doing it. Maybe that's why there's quite a lot of wires coming from the power transformer. Maybe they float each side of the power amp up, like to a higher voltage. Does that make any sense? Don't know. I've not thought about that kind of PA stuff for a while. Oh, look at that. Some goodness going on in there. It's a Class D amplifier, isn't it? With one of those special control doofies under there. And then the output FETs and then output filters using those inductors and film caps to get rid of the PWM ripple. That's what that says, isn't it? Terapar. Yeah, that's one of the Class D thingies. Well, there's interesting stuff on the back here because look how many fuses there are. Surface mount fuses. And there. So there must be some protection in case things go wrong. What an interesting thing. Also means this voltage might be quite low since it's running a 80 volt caps there. Bridge rectifier onto the bottom. And yeah, that's interesting. Let's take this heatsink off here and see what's under that. This made me wonder if this could be a useful amplifier for something. Everything's a useful thing for something. A little heatsink plate. And then it's got a conformable mushy heat spreader thing. Can you see what that is? Not very easily, unfortunately. Everyone wants to know what this thingy is. So it's a TP, is that 2350? The line of goo that's come out of that little pad down it. Okay, it's a lovely little thing. Little heatsink on it. What be all that effective? It's just sort of a token cooling, isn't it, with those squidgy pad things, just to get rid of a couple of watts to stop the package overheating. At least they greatly simplify the heatsink mounting because there's no, or much less precision needed for mounting this plate. You just screw that down until it's tight because it's got that joggle, and then it will do whatever it needs and squidge itself down a bit. Yeah, good quality amplifier. So there's this shielding plastic plate thing. Well, it's like a foil with plastic around it to insulate it, presumably, to shield the RF parts away from the rest of it. The radio mic receivers. Oops. Okay. Not really sure how these come out. Now that's interesting, isn't it? So there's that two wires there, which is presumably the power to the radio mic receivers. And then there's 3 shielded wires coming out. So do they have more than 2 channels? Seems kind of weird. Or is there another signal that comes out for doing something? I think I'm taking apart the wrong stuff here. Okay, so there's quite a lot of business going on this front panel, including the USB connector, which seems to all go over that ribbon cable, which probably goes to the lowest down board on the back there. I think, look, if we can take this front off very easily. Not sure what's holding that on. Alright. Ah, look, that's where all the goodness is. There's a whole bunch of analog devices chips in there on that board. Might have to dig down to this. Maybe I'm going to skip over quite a lot of the unscrewing of hundreds of screws that are holding all the back panel stuff on. So there must be various video like multiplexer chips. Looks like it. You can see one there. Linear Tech. It's got signals coming from, looks like the 3 RGB or components from those VGA looking connectors. And then the equivalent thing on this for the S video signals. And then that's the output there. All of the outputs. I guess this thing can, well, have to, wouldn't it? It has to do conversion as well, because you can choose from those multiple input types, and it has a range of different output types. And so it must have the ability to do signal conversion. Must have a pretty fair bang to break that off. Well, not break it off, just yoink it out. I wonder if it got ruined and that's why I have it now. Oh, look, there are relays there. Maybe that's for switching between the modes that the speakers are running in. There's also resistors. Yeah, it seems like that orange and white wire are for the relay coils. I guess that's to do with configuring it to the 70 volt mode or the regular low voltage mode. Okay, so this board is all the primary audio. So this board here, this blue one, is all to do with video signal routing. You can't get it out without undoing all those you call those things, the jack screws on those VGA D connectors. Hopefully my trusty this thing can do that. Yes, that's good. Alright. So this here is video signal routing. You can see there, they got some little Linear Tech ICs, which must be multiplexer. Well, maybe it doesn't do any conversion, because look at that, those three things there just go straight to the other side of that and picks up that one on the same way. So that must be like a three-way 1 of 2 multiplexer, I guess. So it just chooses which of those the three signals are going to the output. So that must mean there's no conversion. So maybe this thing isn't as complicated or advanced as I thought. And then I think those lines there to something over here must be the sync selection, which can go out of those two. That stuff there. And then the same thing over here, more or less, for composite selection or S video selection. And then that went up here to the outputs. And it looks like it just goes straight across the board up to there. Now look at this. We've got a single-sided board with heaps of jumpers on it. And I'd say that's got all the audio selection on it. Well, for all the unbalanced audio at least. Yeah, that has a massive ribbon cable there joining it up. And another one here down to the bottom. Another one that's going to take ages to undo all these screws. Each set of RCA terminals has got a quite stiff self-tapper, stiff and long self-tapper into it. Okay, I can see now the ribbon cable from the control panel that goes under this board comes up to a connector just there. Okay, so the circuit breaker that we're looking at, it's got nothing to do with that 70 volt speaker line. It looks like it's just in series with the AC. Well, we won't know until we take that board out. You can see there's a plastic sleeve thing under that board to double insulate it from the AC input. And that cable there goes off to the power switch. And then this one here into the primary of the transformer. Okay, now the jack screws for the D connectors. Okay, this is going to come out now. Look at that. Ah, okay. So this thing, is that a connector? That thing there? Maybe it is a connector. I was thinking this thing must be made on a panel, but no, I think that is... Wow, what a weird looking thing that is. Interesting. guess that saves on like dodginess of cable assemblies because it's just a little springy metal thing that wave soldered in at each end and then you plug it together. Look at that. So there's some chips on there. Toshiba TC91634. No, TC9163 AFG. So there must be some more analog multiplexer type things for selecting all these audio inputs to go to there. Which then goes down into this board below, which is where all those balanced audios come in. There's heaps more chips on there. So that's the output, which went to the amplifier. And then this here is the radio mic input. Yes, and now we can see, yes, the circuit breaker does come down to that board, AC. There's one of those little push pin type thingies there. That's shielding and insulation. And so this is the serial and parallel and USB. So parallel might just be, it's not a parallel port, it's probably just parallel control lines. It's probably like an analog thing for the level of these faders on the front, I'd say. Looking at the way that's sort of laid out like some kind of analog input thing. Interesting. Now we get down to the serious business, blue colored boards. And again, we have a huge amount of screws to undo because each of the XLR connectors has 2 screws holding it in. And like a previous time, when that was previously, they're also into a soft cast type material that the threads strip out really easily, making the screws quite stiff. So that's wonderful. Perhaps I'll get back to you once I've unscrewed all of that. Alright, we've got all the screws undone. Now there are a couple of clips, and then I think we can get all the stuff out. There's also this other wire here, which I think is coming from the front panel. I think so. Well, it's coming from something. Oh yes, that is that. There. It's this thing. Is it? No, that's something else. Or is it? I don't know. Connected to something that I can't see. Oops, there goes more of the fan. Anyway, we unplug it to get it out of the way. Then, well, that's the output cable there from the goes to the amplifier. And you can use pliers to get this clip undone. Now that will undo. It's on the little hingy bracket thingies, and that one there doesn't want to come off. Okay, they're off. But now they're in the way. Okay, so 2 ribbon cables came undone. One from that board, and one that goes through to the front panel. It must just be that. But this, oh yeah, it is just that. Okay, so it goes to that. Well, it goes all the way over here. What a arduous path from there, around the front, up on this hook, then underneath everything over to here. And it seems like there was some foam or tape or something that's now gone all gross. So that's awesome. Okay, here's the exciting board. Look at those big guys on there. And some kind of RAM, a small relay, another kind of IC processory type thing. There's nothing going on the back there. On this one, it's just passive components again like this on the back. See those stages all lined up there. So all the good stuff's going on in these ICs. AK4524VF. There's a whole bunch of those. They must be like balanced line receiver thingies, maybe. Maybe that's those are probably. Why don't we look them up? Should we look up something? That way we can know for sure what it is. They're probably the voltage controlled pot type things, whatever you call that. Let's have a look. The keyboard is far away though. A high performance 96 kilohertz 24-bit stereo codec. Is there any digital audio on this thing? Don't know. I don't know. Maybe this does do digital processing. Well, we've got these, which are supposedly ADSPs. Alright. So this must have some kind of stuff it can do. Well described. It's got some stuff that it can do. Yeah, so these chips, these AK chips, 24-bit ADC, 24-bit DAC. So audio in and out. And then it's got output and input serial data thingies. Oh, it's got balanced outputs even. Alright, so that's a fancy little thingy. Yes, I guess they do the volume control stuff digitally. Although didn't it say it has like voltage controlled something thing somewhere? It says there 2-channel independent analog volumes. Okay, so what about this other thing? ADSP, this big chip, dash 21065. So what is this? A low cost SHARC 198 megaflops. So it's some kind of DSP thing that can do stuff. Alright. So there's some grunt on there for doing processing, presumably to the audio signals that get digitized by those chips and then undigitized back to analog. That's a surprise, although it does live up to its name of being a digital processor thing. It's not sure what kind of digital processing it needs. So that's interesting. A lot of surface mount caps to go bad and leak, and all kinds of op-ampy things in there. Nice, very exciting. Now, do we need to take that out? I would like to take the front off, but it's got lots of... Let's see if we can get the front off with these side screws. So I'm going to have a gander at what's in there. Yeah, must have screws from the bottom as well. Oh, okay, so that's the thing that was rattling around inside, which is the spoke part from the fan. Yeah, so it suffered a bit of flopping aboutness. So presumably that thing there is also dealing with the USB. Oh look, it'll be that guy there, won't it? Now look at that, an FTDI chip. FT232BL. Yeah, so that must be what's doing the USB-ness. Well, at least one of them. Maybe this front board's got another one of those FTDI chips in it. Or, where did that come in on the back? Oh, it's on that board there. I think it just goes straight over to that connector, which went to somewhere there, I guess. Alright, well, we'll get off the front panel and we'll take a look in there as well. And notice a whole bunch more screws that are holding the front panel on. All steel construction. Nice and robust. Ah, look at that. The wireless mic thingies come out with it. But that means then we're going to have to unplug these, doesn't it? Because they won't... That's not going to come through. That needs to be unplugged from that end. And the aerials... Oh, look at that. Type of plug on there. I wonder if these are the same length. No, so there's different cable assemblies. I think this will be the last bit we look at. And there's just a power supply of various voltages with different regulators. I think that's particularly interesting. Now, let's take a look at the front Probably gonna have to pull all these knobs off, aren't we? Okay, with a shaft with a flat on it. Yes, the line 4, this one, select from all those different video sources. Ah, look, so that's what's stopping the front coming off. Was there's a shield connection there. Yeah, screwdriver's wearing out. Not very good. Okay, there's the power switch. Now we'll try and get this thing off. Look at that, all the springs and things for making that double receiver release mechanism work. Ah, wow, look at that. It's made up of many layers. The USB connector's on its own little board there. Look at that, why did they make so many different things? Is it just because they didn't want to put light pipes in on those indicators? That they need that gets down at a lower level? Kind of strange. So many cables. There is light pipes in the molding. There's got a EW0132. So is that like a shift register thing? Yeah, series counter shift register. That's good, so you shift the LED data in. I guess that will be similar on this one, which has got all those level displays on it. Okay, PCB mount pots. Another one of those interesting springy board interconnect, pluggable board interconnect thingies. Ah, look, those would have been manufactured like that. Yeah, they go together perfectly. That's cunning, isn't it? So that thing would have been squished and put in at the soldering stage, wave soldered together, then they just snap those apart, and they just pull apart very slightly to mount into the assembly. I've seen similar things in VCRs where they would be assembled out flat like that, snapped apart, and then they get bent to different things like board on the top of the VCR, then down on the front where the display is and the buttons. This is heaps more LEDs, isn't it? Yeah, look at that, grids of LEDs there for little level displays, more of those shift register type thingies. Now this final board has got the sliders on it. I wonder then, are those, I see some analog to digital converters for them? Or are they for something else? Pull all the levers off, the caps off. Did you forget something? Oh, they just lock in at the bottom. Okay. Yeah, see, because they got the T-shapes on them. Buttons with LEDs under them. That's nice. Get that little shaped button thing with a diffused LED thingy in it. Orange LEDs, look at the shape of those things. Quite interesting. And then the sliders, they feel really nice. They must be fancy, expensive ones. Of course they are, they're Sony good quality stuff. I'm not sure what brand they are. Oh, they're Alps. Alps. And these interesting flex ribbon cable connectors, which are placed in from this side. Then they can be wave soldered, but they connect from there. But they don't hang down over the edge of the board, so you can still go to the wave solder. They have a cable push in from the back like that. Pretty nice. Now finally, what are these chips here? Oh, there's a bunch of different chips. These are some logic chips and some EW0132, which is the same thing, shift register things. Alright, yeah, I think this, whatever that says, which is hard to read, is maybe where the sliders go to. This is HC4052, is that an analog multiplexer? It is, yes, it's an analog multiplexer, so there must be one ADC somewhere, and it just multiplexes through these thingies. Alright, I think there's two of them there, two analog multiplexers, and then finally we've got this board here, which is where the USB connector comes in. It must be USB 1.1 or something. That's pretty slow by today's standards, because yeah, they're just passing the data over a whole bunch of different ribbon cables through various boards. And so yeah, there's just some clamp diodes, and then yeah, it just goes into there, which then I think went onto this one here, and then went up through a whole bunch of stuff all the way over to here, and then that went on that massive long ribbon cable underneath everything. It came up on here, and then did something. Maybe it went through that relay. I don't know about that. Definitely goes somewhere. There's a max. Look at that. It's a max 202. So that's the level shifting for the RS-232 port. Amazing. Alright, so there you go. That's a look inside whatever that thing was that we looked inside. A Sony digital powered mixer, SRP-X700, which does audio and video mixing and switching and some kind of DSP stuff. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for next time when we will take apart some other interesting thing and discover what is inside it.